monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings. Join the Explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
Good evening and welcome to Explorers, Seekers of the Truth, episode 17, where everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
That's right.
Sorry for the delay, folks. We were actually talking and kind of missed our cue to start the show. Tonight, as always, I'm joined by my best friend co-host, Les Sincavage. Les, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Great. Now that we're kind of back on track, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm great. Lovely.
So I'm pretty excited about the show that we have going on tonight, and I'm excited about the responses that we've been getting, from the audiences with our past shows. We've been getting a lot of views and a lot of interaction, both on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. So I want to thank everybody out there who watches and listens. We really appreciate, everybody being here and tuning in. And, we don't claim to know everything. We don't know everything, but we much like everybody else out there, we have a passion for the unknown and all things strange. And we just want to kind of share some stories with all you guys, through this show. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, let me bring up the show agenda. There's multiple different ways to get in touch with us. You could go to our website. I just got kicked out. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, that was odd.
Yeah,
like I said, tonight is the night everything that goes wrong will go wrong.
Yeah. Anyways, our website, explorersgroup.com. You could get in touch with us on Twitter at Explorers Group. That's our handle. And obviously on Facebook, where you guys see us now, is facebook.com/Explorers Group. So let me get that out of the way. And I think what happened is the panel for the agenda came up, and I think there was a glitch in the system, and the button to take me out of broadcast is behind that panel. And I think when I clicked on that, somehow it just went through the panel and hit my take out of broadcast, and I just came out of the panel. I don't know.
Well, it could be this, Les. As ancient astronaut theorists would state, could Les accidentally have hit the button, or was it aliens? Yeah. They believe it was aliens.
Yeah, I actually traveled through a parallel dimension right there, folks, so I hope you don't mind me stepping out for a brief moment. But anyways, as another part to get in touch with us, BeLive has a really cool feature where if you guys comment underneath the show on Facebook, the comments will populate in the BeLive interface, and we could interact with you. And we already have somebody had written in, Jack Sanders, I'm ready, they're ready. Good, we're ready if you're ready. So thanks for joining, Jack, and everybody else who's stopping by. So I guess, Chad, do you want to tell everybody about the show tonight, or do you want me to?
Well, I would just like to thank everybody that is, tuning in week after week and kind of, growing along with us here. It's an overwhelming amount of support and engagement. And, we want to thank you guys for that, especially, we do this because it's fun. Mm-hmm. And, when we're seeing what the video, like the views on the video numbers are at the end of a week, it is really, something that, makes us really want to do our best and continue to keep doing this. So want to thank everybody.
Yeah, it's rewarding. It really is. At the end of the night and everything, when we see all the comments and the interaction and the continued responses, it's a sense of reward for us almost, and satisfaction knowing that maybe we did something nice, maybe we did something that people can enjoy. So, like Chad said, we have a passion for it. Hey, Cleo, I knew you'd be there. Thanks for joining. But we love it. So, anywho, thank you all very much. Like Chad said. Tonight's show, I'll get on to topics since we kind of rambled on a little bit there. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the 7 different kinds of alien encounters. I don't know if many of you out there knew the classes or all the different levels of alien encounters, but apparently there are 7. There are several different representations of these close encounters, like I said. But tonight we're going to be focusing on Dr. Alan Hynek's scale of UFO classifications. And according to thenightsky.com, Dr. Joseph Allen Hynek was a United States astronomer. Excuse me. I had a reverse sneeze there. It was very weird. It must have been aliens. But anyways, Dr. Joseph Allen Hynek was a United States astronomer, professor, and UFOologist, or however you pronounce it. He is perhaps the best ufologist. There we go.
I think that's...
Is that right? I'll take your word for it. Ufologist. He is perhaps the best remembered for his UFO research. Hynek acted as scientific advisor to UFO studies undertaken by the U.S. Air Force under 3 consecutive names: Project Sign from 1947 to 49, Project Grudge from 49 to 52, and Project Blue Book from 52 to 69. And for decades afterwards, he conducted his own independent UFO research, developing the close encounter classification system, and is widely considered the father of the concept of scientific analysis of both reports and especially trace evidence purportedly left by UFOs. So as we break down the 7 kind of encounters, we'll discuss some, well-known encounters that had happened throughout history related to each kind. So Chad, you wanna take over, buddy, and talk about Hynix Scale?
Yeah, Dr. Hynek is perhaps the most detailed and significant breakdown. Hynek's classifications are arranged according to increasing proximity. Okay, so you start out with stuff like nocturnal lights, lights in the night sky, daylight discs, UFOs seen in the daytime, generally having a disorderly shape. I can't say that tonight.
Discoidal?
Discoidal. Yeah, discoidal. I threw that one right out there.
You got it, bud.
Yeah, or oval shaped.
There you go.
And then there's also like the radar visual, UFOs that are reports that are confirmed by radar. This, lends harder evidence that the objects are real.
That would be kind of, not to interrupt, but that would be kind of like that movie Contact, right? Where they got the radio frequencies that came through, and that's how they were starting to communicate with the extraterrestrials.
No, that's a little different. That like radar in this scale would be more like air traffic control radar, not radio.
Okay.
The actual, yeah. Now, see, one of the problems.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, kind of like that one video that was kind of circulating recently, where it was like these U.S. Air Force pilots. I think they were somewhere in the Southwest in like some sort of a canyon, and they seen this flash of light and it like beamed past them. They couldn't catch it, but I think it was proven to be a hoax. But that's the kind of radar where it was coming up on their radar screen while they were flying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, there's been incidents over the years where air traffic control for major airports have seen objects appear on their radar, but that becomes a problem because there is issues with certain things being able to create a radar trace where it'll actually pop up on radar and seem to, pop up and all of a sudden disappear so quick, that it leaves a signal that is picked up, but it moves so fast that it seems to be moving at unearthly type speeds.
Right.
So radar, there's a little bit of an issue, but that brings us to the close encounter of the first kind, which is the real, where Hynix Scale really starts to get interactive. And what the first kind is, it's a visual sighting of an unidentified flying object, seemingly less than 500 feet away, that shows an appreciable angular extension and considerable detail. So, that's where, people are having these sightings of a, what you consider a UFO. One of the things with UFOs, you got to look at the key there of unidentified flying object.
Mm-hmm.
When you get an unidentified flying object, like we always say, some of these native peoples in the Congo or in the Amazon, they may have never seen an airplane or a jet plane. Mm-hmm. So the term UFO, especially how we're going to refer to it for the rest of tonight, is not in the sense of terrestrial UFOs, because there's a big jump from UFO being terrestrial based, unknown, the skunk work project by the U.S. government or something like that, mm-hmm. to it actually being an extraterrestrial vehicle. So tonight we're really looking more at the extraterrestrial versions of this. When we say UFO, we're kind of discounting some of the more terrestrial, easily explained vehicles that maybe people don't know about, like the stealth bombers back in the 80s and 90s. So, just so everybody kind of has an idea, when we talk UFO, we're talking more of the extraterrestrial vehicles. And now, I remember years ago, your dad sharing a story with us. For people that don't know Wes and I, we grew up very, basically we became best friends at like 13.
Yeah, we were brothers from another mother, literally. Yeah. Like, we were very close. My family, my mom likes Chad more than she likes me. Let's just put it that way. My mom goes out of her way to make him happy and bake him things and make him food and before she'd do it for me. Son of a bitch.
But she only sees me like once every 2 years anymore, so she's kind of got to, get all that in when I'm there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. She misses her baby. But like Chad was saying, I remember my dad had passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, so I would have had him on the show to tell this encounter, but I'll try based off of what I remember him telling us when we were younger. And my dad, like, he was just one of those happy-go-lucky, like, didn't have a care in the world kind of guys. He didn't go out of his way to fabricate anything. He didn't make stuff up. He was very much, straightforward and honest. But he told me when he was younger, he was playing in his backyard, and he's from a town called Mahanoy City in Pennsylvania. And for anybody who doesn't know about that town, it's a very small, what they call a patch town, which was one of many back in the boom of the coal industry in Pennsylvania, in eastern Pennsylvania. They mined a lot of anthracite coal, which is the harder coal, as opposed to like bituminous, which is a softer, faster burning coal. But anyway, these towns were small. The houses they're row homes, which is basically the whole town from end to end is just a giant house. Basically, it's all these houses that are stacked in this row, and a lot of the miners worked and lived in these towns, so it was easy to get to the mines. So when one person saw something, typically everybody saw something because they were all connected and they were all very close and lumped basically on top of each other. So my dad was telling me he was young, probably around 10 years old. So that would probably put it back in about the early 50s when he had this encounter. He was playing in his backyard, and there was back maybe 2 alleyways behind his house. They would run parallel. There was a playground, and I think it was called the East End Playground. I don't know. But he said this round, dome-topped, disc-shaped craft came down from the sky and hovered over where the playground would be. I don't know if there were children at the playground at the time or anything like that. I haven't heard anything else of the story other than what my dad told me. But he said it came down and it hovered over where the playground was. It was gray in color, but reflective. Very quiet, just made like a humming or a buzzing noise. And he said it was there for a few seconds, and the neighbors around him, they were all in their backyards and stuff like that, and they were all standing there looking up at this disc that had come down. And like he said, it was there for a few seconds, and then like in the blink of an eye, in a flash, this thing just took off. I haven't heard anything from any of the neighbors, not that I really talked to any of them, because most of them aren't around anymore because they were all older folks. But I haven't heard much else to that story. But like I said, my dad, I don't see what he would have gotten out of lying about it, because he really only told his kids, and to what advantage, or, you know, what would it have gotten him other than, I don't know. I don't even know why. You know, it wouldn't even make sense for him to make it up. He wasn't that kind of guy. But it was very weird. So that kind of a situation, I feel, is what you would consider a close encounter of the first kind, where you would see it from, you know, a certain distance away. It's there and then it's gone. There's no communication. There's no little green men coming out of it or anything like that. There's no interaction with, you know, human and alien. They didn't take anything. It just came down, hovered, and boom, gone.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
interesting.
I had an experience one time when I was a kid, looking at the moon and seeing, like, if you're looking at the moon, and you know how they always say the man on the moon, the face.
Yeah.
If you were looking at his like left eye, I saw something that looked like it came out of his left eye and then proceeded to continue going in a left, you know, direction left of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a dark spot. Now, could it have been a satellite, being a kid and, you know, seeing that and all of a sudden thinking like, oh, what did I just see? And not realizing that I actually did see it cross in front of the entire moon at that point. It was like a satellite or something like that. But, you know, I'm not sure it was a UFO, and I would never say UFO or something like that. But it was just a weird one of those, you know, kind of thinking about it over the years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was something I couldn't identify.
Yeah, I think at any age that would be kind of an odd thing to see, even if it were a satellite that's orbiting the planet, you know, I mean, just like a communication satellite.
Yeah,
that's a weird thing to see, is something to be going in front of the moon like that.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm just pulling off my headphones. I got to adjust something.
All right. So as he's making his adjustments, I'll start going into the close encounters of the second kind. So the second kind is like when a UFO event in which a physical effect is alleged. So this could be interference in the functioning of a vehicle or an electronic device, animals reacting, psychological effects such as like paralysis or heat and discomfort in the witness, or some physical trace like impressions in the ground, scorched earth, or otherwise affected vegetation, or some kind of a chemical trace. And I've actually got another kind of personal story in relation to that. Do you want me to just kind of go through that first before we get into? We have a story that kind of correlates with the close encounters of the second kind. It's the Cache Landrum incident, which Chad's going to tell you guys about. That is a really kind of a very interesting story. But
yeah, share your stuff. I mean,
yeah, well, mine is, and I don't know what it is. I don't know, but and I'm not. I don't want to come across as a weirdo or anything like that, or
hold on, Les.
Well, anybody who knows me would know that I'm straight up weirdo.
But we do a show about all things strange, cryptozoology, paranormal research, ufology.
I know, but
think
I still like to think that I'm in the realm of normal, logical thinking human beings. But
well,
no, I see your point. So I'll get to the story. So basically, my wife and I we lived in we rented a farmhouse outside of the town that we're in now. It's still within the township or the borough, but it was on the outskirts of town. It was on 150 private acres. It was pretty secluded, very rural. And at night, if you didn't have a light out there, you could barely see the hand in front of your face. Chad, you were out there numerous times. You know how it is. I mean, we were out in those woods many, many times at night trying to find things. And when we do another Bigfoot show, I'm really going to get into my personal experiences out there, because there was so much stuff that had happened that I experienced. My wife, my kids, Chad, my pets, other people. I could literally do an entire show based off of the stuff and the information that we gathered at that location. But I'm going to talk about one part in particular, because tonight we're talking about extraterrestrials. Basically, when we were there, we were there for almost 10 years. And I'd say this happened within the first maybe 3 years. It was when our oldest daughter, who is now 7, when she was an infant, just a few months old, we had her in the bedroom across the hallway, and we had Graco monitors, and we were laying there at night, and you could hear kind of just like that soft white noise that you typically hear on the monitors, kind of like that shh. Every now and again, you'd hear like a little whimper or a coo or something from the baby. Everything was fine, But one night we're laying there, and it was the soft white noise. Then all of a sudden, the monitors made this god awful sound. It was basically like some kind of an interference. It almost was like that this is only a test for the public broadcasting system or whatever it is, or the where it's like it made this weird noise. Then all of a sudden it went completely silent, and all you could hear is this weird sound that the only thing I could relate that you people could go and listen to, because I'm going to butcher it when I try and make the sound. If you ever saw the movie Signs with Mel Gibson, I think it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. In the movie Signs, the aliens make this noise, which is kind of like a, I don't know if you heard that or not, but it was almost, it almost had like an insecty kind of sound to it. It was just like these clicking, and I don't know. So it did that a couple of times. And then I could hear my daughter's voice through the monitor as well, and she kind of like groaned. I freaked out. I jumped out of bed, ran into my daughter's room, and she's lying in her crib, sound as a pound, nothing wrong with her, nothing in there. My heart's beating out of my chest because I don't know what the hell I just heard. So I go back into the bedroom, I lie down, and maybe 15 minutes to a half hour later, I'm lying in bed wide awake because I'm scared, because I didn't know what it was. I was kind of freaked. And I'm lying there wide open, my eyes wide open. I didn't see any lights, no reflections, no nothing. So it's not like, there was something hovering that, because typically when a UFO comes down, there's a light, a ball of light, or I didn't see anything. But about 15, maybe a half hour, 30 minutes later, same noise. And then Lily started to cry. I jumped out of bed, ran back in, and she's lying there sound asleep. Nothing. And it's freaking me out. Like, I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So I went back in, laid down. I was lying there for probably 2 hours before I finally fell asleep. And that must have happened 2 or 3 other times. And I would do the same thing. I'd jump out of bed, run in, go check on her. Nothing was going on until finally it happened a third time, and it continued longer than normal. And finally I said, you know what? Screw this. We have a big king-size bed. So I went in and I grabbed my daughter, and I just put her between my wife and I. And then we ended up getting a co-side sleeper where my daughter would just sleep in that next to our bed. I said to my wife, I said, you know what? I said, I don't want her in there anymore. It's freaking me out. I can't sleep. I don't know what the hell that noise is. I'm sure it's just some kind of a interference. It's something rationally explain that you could explain, but I couldn't figure it out. It scared the hell out of me. And from then on, I'm like, you know what? I'm keeping the kid in here with me. And then there she stayed for a long time. And then her sister came along 3 years later and never experienced anything with Maddie. Never experienced anything. But then again, the house was very, very, very small. We were outgrowing it. We were bursting at the seams. We really shouldn't have had a second kid in that house because there was really no room. So Madison and her mommy stayed downstairs most of the time. They slept in the living room, and Lily and I stayed upstairs. And it wasn't until we moved into the new house that the girls have their own bedrooms and stuff now. But anyway, I did experience a lot of weird things in that house. Like I used to get like that sleep paralysis where it's almost like you're having a nightmare and you're trying to wake up and you physically have to shake yourself because you're frozen. And my wife laughs all the time because I'll sit there and I'll try and scream and it comes out and sound like I'm like I don't know. I kicked out again. Sorry about that. I don't know what the hell is going on with this software. I didn't touch anything.
Now, my question is, when you go out, am I still on?
Oh, no, you're there. Yeah, as far as what I can see in the interface. Anybody listening, are we still live? Can you still hear us? If you could shoot us a message on the comments. Cleo, can you shoot us a comment? Can you hear us? Hopefully. If there's nothing there, I guess you can't. I don't want to keep talking if we don't have a show.
No, we're still live. I'm actually, how I watch on my phone to make sure I can see comments. And it does actually, when you go out, I'm the only one in the show. I didn't realize I was on.
It's never done that to me before. That's freaking.
I'm telling you, it's aliens.
It's aliens.
Okay. Actually, I do, when you say about the movie related sound, I honestly believe, and it's very crazy, and like you said, you don't want to sound weird. This is going to sound even weirder. I do believe there is programming going on with humans for certain sounds to become normal. If you ever watch a lot of the Alien movies, not Alien franchise movies, but movies that have like
about aliens
coming to Earth or something like that, they always play the sound that's like a da-da. It's even in commercials and stuff nowadays, and it's just constantly, every time they make a movie, you'll find it in there. Like that, just that one sound, and one of these days I'll find a clip and play it. But that does bring us, kind of circle back to the close encounters of the second kind, which does bring us to the Cash Landrum incident. On the evening of December 29th, 1980, Betty Cash and Vicky and Colby Landrum, Vicky's 7-year-old grandson, were driving home to Dayton, Texas in Cash's Oldsmobile Cutlass. It was, 1980, so you're looking at probably a 70-something Cutlass. After being out to eat and stuff like that, it was about 9 o'clock, and when they were driving on an isolated 2-lane road with dense woods on either side, they witnessed a light above the trees. Initially, it was, they were thinking it was an airplane, as they're in the approach lanes for Houston Intercontinental Airport, which is about, I'm going to say about 35, 36 miles from where they were at this point, or at least where they alleged they were at that point. And, they pretty much gave it little thought. And then, moments later, they're on this winding road and they saw the same light again, except for it was much closer at this point. And, the intensity of the light had picked up. And what they claim is the light came from a huge diamond-shaped object, which hovered at about treetop level at this point. and at the base, it was expelling flames and emitting significant amounts of heat. So Landrum tells Cash to stop the car, fearing that basically they would be burned up in the flames, of whatever this thing was. So they stop the car as they approach, but of course, they they were born again Christians, and they almost basically interpreted it as a sign of the second coming of Jesus, and kind of started approaching the object. And as they approach,
I didn't mean to confuse you there. I don't mean to cut you off either, because I really, really want to talk about this story. But I posted on our live feed in a response, or to see if people could just see if the message went through and if they could hear us, and it didn't go through. And from what I could see, all of our live views, nothing has changed, and usually things cycle a bit. So I just sent Leslie a message to see if the live feed is still actually working on Facebook. Because if it's not, I wanna log out and try and log back in and get the show started again. Does it look like it's working on your your phone?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
But yeah, I just typed a message on the phone.
Okay. She says, I hear you guys. All right. So maybe it's the interface that's not working. I don't know, but all right. Anyways, I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to make sure the show's coming through for everybody, so I apologize. I'm sorry, Chad. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Again, I'm not saying it was aliens, but clearly it was aliens. So they approach this object, and they basically say it's about treetop level. So you got to think maybe around, 20 foot or so off the ground at this point. And, both Cash and Landrum get out of the car to examine the object. Now, Colby being 7, he's a terrified little kid. He kind of stays in the vehicle. His grandmother returns very quickly to comfort him, knowing, she has her 7-year-old grandson with her. She's not going to just run off and, have something happen. Now, Cash is the one who, is mesmerized by the sight and stays and is actually getting closer to the object as this is all happening. And, she had said, it was a dull metallic silver. And from what she could kind of make out of the shape, that it was like an upright diamond. When they compared it in size of objects, they basically compared it to the local water tower.
Mm-hmm.
And she had, when they say about, lights on it and stuff like that, which always confuses me why UFOs have lights. If you're capable of flying through space, why do you need lights when you come to our planet to blink or be shown? Airplanes have them to let people know they're airplanes, and other objects know they're airplanes and stuff like that. They don't need them otherwise. Our space shuttles don't really have lights on them, so that always throws me off. But they basically, it was a small blue ring of lights on it. And what it would do is it would actually shoot out flame and would rise up a little bit, and then would slowly descend back to about the height where it started. Now, as she returns to the car, this is where, with the second kind, you get more of the physical trace evidence and actual effect on humans. When she gets back to the car, she actually goes to grab the car door handle, and it was so hot that she actually had to put her coat over her hand to open the car door handle.
Mm-hmm.
When she gets back in the car, she pushes her hand onto the dashboard, and, if anybody remembers being a child of the 70s, hot plastic dashboards, when you're a kid, I mean, you can dent them, you could kind of, put an indentation in them and stuff like that. And they claim there was a handprint in their dashboard for several weeks. One of the problems there is there was never a photograph taken of it. So It becomes a little sketchy. Now, I mean, there are other things that we'll talk about in this case, that have been documented and stuff like that. And as I was saying, like the object was like kind of emitting flames, rising up and then dropping back down. Well, at one point it shoots up into the sky, well above the treetops. And at this point, the women count 23 helicopters, which they later identify as the CH-47 Chinook, which people who grew up anywhere near Indiantown Gap, that's the double rotor helicopter we would always see flying out of the Gap.
The big ones that usually carry multiple soldiers, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, the ones with the double rotors and stuff like that. I mean, growing up as close to the Gap as we did, that's what you see a lot of times flying out of the Gap. They basically claim the helicopters were giving chase to the object from a distance, almost as if they were kind of shadowing it as it was flying. So basically this incident lasts, about 20 minutes, and there are other witnesses to that. See, this was one of the things that makes the Cache Landrum incident so interesting. Basically, there was a Dayton police officer who also witnessed this. He was out with his wife, and when they witnessed it, they didn't count 23 Chinook helicopters. They only had 12. But his identification of the location where they witnessed this would put you basically where Cache and Landrum claimed to have been at that point. So you now have some corroboration of where the object and the helicopters were at roughly about the same time.
Yeah, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just breathing. Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure it didn't freeze again. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the messaging and stuff. Leslie just said that I was texting her, and she said that she could hear us. The show is still going through, but no, she tried to comment on Facebook, post a comment on Facebook, and it's not going through. And she said that even the number of viewers, I see that there's 8 people viewing in the interface, and she said it shows 1 on Facebook. So I don't know what's
on the
going
Facebook
on.
When I watch it on Facebook while we're doing the show, mine almost always says there's only 1 to 3 people, and it just bounces back and forth in there. But yeah, it has been on 1 pretty much almost the entire show. It says we're live, and it's still counting down.
All right, well, we'll just keep going. That way, we're not wasting any more time worrying about this, because I don't want to ruin the show for everybody. So let's keep on trucking, keep going with your story, because this is a good one.
Okay, I sent a message through the Facebook app to see if it'll pop up on the screen as we're going here.
Awesome. Okay.
So now we have basically 3 eyewitnesses in the Cache Landrum party. We have Lamar Walker, who was a detective, who was the police officer who was out with his wife, who also saw the helicopters in the same area. So basically, we're going to move up to April 1981.
Your dog scares the shit out of me every show. I swear to God. Go on. I swear I won't interrupt again.
So, in April of 81, a CH-47 flies into Dayton, and Colby sees it. and he becomes very upset. So his grandmother decides to take him to where the helicopter has landed in hopes that, by him seeing it on the ground, it would become less frightening for him. It was kind of a bringing back the memories of the incident.
Right.
They reached the area where it landed, and they were allowed to go inside the helicopter. And this is where you start running into some government issues. So they're allowed onto the helicopter, and they decide to talk to the pilot. And as soon as they bring up the UFO sighting and the fact that they saw what they believed to be the CH-47 Chinooks, the 23 of them, basically they were kind of moved along very quickly. Mm-hmm. It went from a very friendly interaction to, okay, you guys have to go now. And basically...
So the attempt to try and make the kid feel better is not working.
Well, it does work to a point, but when she brings up... Because, they're inside a helicopter at that point, which is, not a lot of people get to do stuff like that.
Right.
But they basically, once she starts bringing up the whole incident, the guy becomes very short with her, cuts her off, and is kind of like, okay, ma'am, you guys have to leave.
Yeah.
Which, I do know that while working as a federal employee or anything like that, you can't actively participate in telling ghost stories or, paranormal stuff or cryptozoology related. I guess UFO type stuff would probably fall into that, unless that is your, job is to discuss that. But there is an actual, statute in your employment that says you can't do this. So that's something that could be, kind of a reasonable answer to why they were hurried and kind of cut off, is that the pilot is trying to not engage in this conversation, not end up in, some kind of, not and end up basically just end up not in trouble because, oh, we heard him talking about this and, he gets written up or something like that, or, ends up losing his retirement over a conversation with at that point, a 50-some-year-old woman,
right?
Who's a grandmother and stuff like that. Yeah. And you also got to think that kind of conversation could lead down a lot of roads. You talk to somebody who believes certain things and they believe it so much, you start to get drugged down that rabbit hole, and maybe he was trying not to be drugged down that rabbit hole.
Right.
But when you look at the Cash Landrum, like the physical effects, both of the women end up in the hospital at different points. Cash ended up losing 50% of her hair at one point. And basically both of them, and even Colby, now Colby's symptoms were a lot less because he stayed inside the car. But even he experienced symptoms of basic radiation poisoning. He ended up with some stomach issues and stuff like that. I do believe he is still alive, and I know he has actually spoken on this incident and stuff like that over the years. I do believe his grandmother and her friend have since passed. Yeah. Not 100% sure on that, but they had basically both shown symptoms of radiation poisoning, nausea, stomach troubles, loss of hair. And several hours after the incident, it presented as, basically it presents as sunburn. Like the skin became red and hot to the touch, and it ended up being, a couple of days before either one of them, actually checked with a doctor. But the symptoms are basically the core symptoms of radiation poisoning.
Oh my God.
Now, one of the things I find interesting, though, is if you remember back to what I was describing and kind of going through the case history, is the object was diamond shaped and was emitting fire, and from the bottom of it would raise up a little bit and then come back down. Well, how do hot air balloons work? There's fire, it heats the air, the molecules move, it raises up as it goes, as it expands. Then as it dissipates, it comes back down. And then you fire it back up and it drifts back up. Mm-hmm. I'm not, now flames in that, in a hot air balloon situation would not be coming out the bottom of it.
Right, right.
But it does offer some reasonable explanation, or I guess it gives the skeptics more evidence or stuff to point towards to say that you misidentified this.
Yeah.
But yet there were a lot of...
No, go ahead.
I was just going to finish it. There were a lot of people that reported this around that time on that night. And from what I understand, it was not an isolated incident in that area. Yeah. It was kind of another sighting, and these people just happened to get that close and report it.
It's funny when you say about how the kid experienced almost like radiation poisoning. I'm wondering if these vehicles that these crafts that these aliens are utilizing, I'm wondering if it's some sort of a nuclear powered engine of some sort that would generate enough power. Because you were talking about like the hot air balloons and how the molecules heat, it could raise the craft. Well, if it's like a nuclear powered, I mean, that you would have to have an extremely strong and powerful combustion or reaction to lift a craft just straight up off the ground. You know what I mean? Whereas, a helicopter is lifted from the propulsion of the propellers. It creates that underdraft, that almost like a upward suction where it's just going to take you up. Yeah. And planes and stuff have, jet engines that propel you forward, and then the rudders and stuff or whatever on the wings would keep you, would direct your altitude. But these don't have anything. It's just a disc. So you would have to have some sort of an extremely strong means of getting up off the ground and propulsion.
Well, here's the thing that we always end up getting to is our interpretation of what is possible or probable. I actually watched a documentary while we were leading up to the show to kind of get myself a little more well-versed with UFO craft technology and stuff like that. And basically, our whole answer to all this is, well, we can't do it, so nobody could. Everybody has to follow the same parallel path of scientific knowledge that we as humans do. There's no race out there that maybe started on the opposite end and worked on nuclear first instead of something else.
Yeah.
But to create a large enough explosion, they basically, in our scientific knowledge, have ruled that out as a possible propulsion system for space travel, because the ships would have to be so big to have all that and to house the explosion and stuff like that to propel themselves would be so great that it wouldn't be stable as it would move. Now, what you also got to think about, when a lot of these cases you end up hearing about radiation or trace amounts of increased radiation and stuff like that, is if they are interstellar vehicles, they're flying through radiation in space, and they're built in such a way that the radiation is not getting into the ship, but it's still metal, it's a form of metal that is now radioactive.
Right.
So it's not going through that type of metal, but it's got to go somewhere at that point. It's displacing itself outward from the ship. So people that are getting close to it would actually be getting cosmic radiation, which could and would actually cause radiation poisoning.
Right, and that would explain the scorching of the earth. I mean, it goes through, it burns vegetation, but it also heats up enough where it melts rock and dirt and stuff like that. And the gamma levels are usually incredibly high on supposed UFO landing sites. So, I mean, based off of that, it would have to be obviously some sort of radioactive nuclear engine. Unless it's something, obviously, unless it's something otherworldly, but it's emitting these levels of radiation that we could, calculate on Earth, which makes me kind of think too is if it is otherworldly, if it is, from another planet, this technology, what else is there that we don't know about, that we can't pick up, that we're coming in contact with? Because a lot of people that get into these areas now, granted, exposure to radiation could make your body do a lot of crazy things, but I mean, think about a lot of the almost like psychotic reactions that people get after being exposed to these areas and these crafts. It makes me wonder what else are they absorbing or ingesting that's giving them these fits. You know what I mean? Is it just the radiation, or is it something else that we don't know and we can't detect, that are kind of not? And people say, oh, well, it might be mind control or this and that. Well, no, maybe it's just some sort of a chemical reaction that we're not able to identify, and they're almost having like a hallucinogenic trip, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, that's making them react that way. So, I don't know.
Well,
but it's
that, and
go ahead.
Well, that and the types of radiation. We're used to radiation on our understanding and our levels of radiation. If they're traveling through space where they're picking up different forms of radiation, or if it's a propulsion system, we have an understanding of radiation to how we have it and stuff. Again, if it's a different way of doing it, it may be creating a different form of the radiation that people are getting, and we're able to read and trace a certain type. But it could be doing stuff to the brain, the chemical, of the brain and stuff like that, that is causing, changes of the, instincts and reactions and stuff like that.
Well, if you think about it, I kind of have two theories. One is it's still this in a way still kind of confirms my theory that extraterrestrials are futuristic humans coming back to basically keep tabs on the Earth and harvest things that they need, that their bodies had evolved to do away with, in the future. Second part to this too, I don't know if it's a counterpoint or would be more going along with it. If it is otherworldly, if you think about space, the universe, it's an infinite void, which is hard enough to fathom. But most of the debris that is just kind of floating around out there in outer space, and I could be completely wrong on this, but if you think about it, our planets, the planets and other systems and stuff like that, like and just it's a collection of all this debris. So all this stuff, what we have on Earth, what's on Mars, what's on Venus, what's on Mercury, it's iron, it's different, granted, other kind of mineral materials. So all this is floating around in space. It's obviously has been collected and formed planets and this and that and all the different kind of gases, you know, because we have the gas giants in our solar system. So in my mind, I would think, like a logical thought to me would be that other planets out there, although the organisms may be different, may look different, but I would say their biomechanical makeup would be similar as far as like cells and stuff like that, but the planets I would think would consist of some of the same materials that we would find here. There may be higher levels or different variations, but all the stuff that's floating around in space that made our solar system would most likely be the same compounds that make other solar systems, because it's all the same stuff floating around out there. But again, like I said, to play the devil's advocate, the universe is infinite, so you don't, I guess you really can't say that everything is the same in a void that never ends, you know. But I would think that, especially within any neighboring systems, that the mineral and just all the compounds like we have in our periodic table would probably be very similar on other planets. But like I said, the planets themselves may look different. The organisms that live on those planets would most likely be different, because I can't imagine, you know, all the planets that hold life like ours are all the same. You know, I would imagine that some are far older, and not to sound hokey, but kind of like the whole concept of Star Wars, in a galaxy far, far away, you know, long, long ago. Maybe there are other species that kind of parallel us or are similar, like bipeds and stuff like that. But I think there will be differences, and I think like some galaxies may be far older than ours, and those races or those, beings are far more advanced than we are, because you can't sit there and say in an infinite void that's been there for as far as we know, forever. You can't tell me something isn't more evolved or more advanced than we are. And just because we don't have the technology now to travel vast distances in space doesn't mean something else or some other species or race doesn't.
Yeah, because but that goes along with the point of we automatically assume that another life form would have to parallel our scientific discoveries.
Right.
Like you said, you know, if it's an older civilization, you know, we're getting evidence from people like Graham Hancock and stuff like that our civilization is actually older than than we're being told.
Mm-hmm.
So, and could it be stuff where a civilization sprung up quicker? It didn't have to evolve as far as we did, you know, to get to our form that we are now. So at an earlier stage, they were already handling mathematics and science, mm-hmm. and you were kind of getting into the Drake equation of the fact of, with the number of known life-supporting planets in our galaxy,
mm-hmm.
you know, there's a big mathematical formula that basically figures out, it's called the Drake equation, if anybody wants to look it up. And I'm going to butcher it as I go. It basically states that somewhere out there has to be, or the probability is so much higher that somewhere out there are other civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not saying that another planet of humans exist, but, you know, bacteria, something, and we are finding bacteria living in space. But
they found bacteria on Mars,
mm-hmm.
which is technically well, there's the whole kind of bacteria in Uranus, but on Mars, but the bacteria, and I may be wrong in stating this, but I think when I read a report online that the bacteria is the same that's on Earth, but being it's on a different planet, it's still alien bacteria. It's extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm. And
because it's not on our our planet.
Yeah, and it's life.
Yeah.
It is life on another planet.
It may not be the life that we want to see, like, finding like Avatar people, kind of, you know what I mean? Like a whole other race that's mildly intelligent and whatnot, But life is life, no matter how you slice it, and whether it's microscopic or not, it's life.
Well,
so I think we spent a lot. I think we spent enough time on the second kind. It's already 9:30, and we didn't even get into the third kind. Do we want to just quick go through that?
Do you want me to do it real quick? I can blast through most of this.
Yeah, go through the A through F kind of concept, and I'll talk about the topic for that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you have close encounters of the third kind, which is basically a UFO encounter where there is a animated creature present. These include, humanoids, robots, and this also includes humans who seem to be the occupants or pilots of a UFO. There were several cases over the years that actually lends credibility to the whole humans time traveling back, and that's what we're seeing as UFOs. There's several cases over the years where there were basically the pilots were described as normal looking human beings in like coveralls. One of them, they basically the people saw the pilot and it was just a human in coveralls, like blue coveralls, and they thought, wow, that's kind of a weird, a weird craft for the government to have. But then it just took off and disappeared. And, basically there was no admission by the government that we had anything like that at that point. So now this brings us to basically some subcategories in here. And this is subcategories on Hynix, close encounters of the third kind scale. And basically, subcategory A is an entity is observed only inside the UFO. Where you go into B, where an entity is observed inside and outside of the UFO. You get to C, and the entity is observed near to a UFO, but not going in or out of it.
Okay.
D, the entity is observed. No UFOs are observed, but UFO activity has been reported in the area at or around the same time.
Okay.
Letter E, in this grand scale of things, an entity is observed, but no UFOs are seen. No activity has been reported in that area around or on that time.
So you just happen upon an alien.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there's letter F in this subcategory scale. No entity or UFOs are observed, but the subject experiences some kind of intelligent communication. Yeah, so basically having a conversation with somebody intelligently is a subcategory of the Hynix scale.
All right, so these are basically subcategories of the third kind.
Yeah.
And it's basically seeing and or experiencing a being.
Yes, but it also then breaks down on what is the being doing. Like, is the being in the ship? Is the being out of the ship? Is the being not around a ship? Is the ship not there but has been reported as being there? I think somebody just got bored on the weekend and came up with subcategories.
Yeah, right. Well, obviously, based off of the name of this kind, there was a movie, a very popular movie that I'm sure many people have seen, which was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that's a 1977 American science fiction film written and directed by none other than Steven Spielberg. And it starred Richard Dreyfuss, Melinda Dillon, Terry Garr, Bob Balaban, Cary Guffey, and Francois Truffaut. A write-up on Rotten Tomatoes explains that Steven Spielberg followed Jaws with this epic science fiction adventure about a desperate group of people who attempt to contact alien intelligence. Roy Neary, who was played by Richard Dreyfuss, is an electrical lineman who, while sent out on an emergency repair, witnesses an unidentified flying object and even has a sunburn, quote, sunburn, from its bright lights to prove it. Neary's wife and children are at first skeptical, then concerned, and eventually fearful as Roy refuses to accept a logical explanation for what he saw and is prepared to give up his job, his home, and his family to pursue the truth about UFOs. Neary's obsession eventually puts him in contact with others who've had close encounters with alien spacecraft, including Jillian, played by Melinda Dillon, a single mother whose son disappeared during her UFO experience, and Claude Lacombe, celebrated French filmmaker Francois Truffaut, a French researcher who believes that we can use a musical language to communicate with alien visitors. Lacombe's theory is put to the test when a band of government researchers and underground UFO enthusiasts, including Neary, joined for an exchange with alien visitors near Devil's Tower, Wyoming. In 1980, a special edition was released, while its primary selling point was the addition of scenes inside the alien spaceship, which is kind of cool. But anyways, so, and actually, fun fact, it actually had a cameo when they were making contact with the aliens, and it was actually played by Dr. Hynek playing himself, which was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
But that movie basically encompasses what a Close Encounter of the Third Kind would be. So super cool movie. Check it out. It is very actually factual on the basis of Hynix Scale. So pretty cool.
Now, wasn't there something with E.T. in the...
Yeah, when the aliens were coming out, it was supposed to be when they're coming out of the ship. There was supposed to be some sort of throw ahead, if you will, not throw back, but a throw ahead or a tip of the hat towards what to expect with E.T. I don't know if it was the way the aliens looked or what, but it was supposedly some kind of a connection with E.T., which I think is another Spielberg film, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, Star Wars, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Indiana Jones all take place in the same universe.
Yes.
Mind blown.
Yeah, right.
I also like how you said when the aliens are coming out, and all I could see is and hear was, "Hi, we're aliens, and we're fabulous."
Yeah, I thought about that too. I'm like, coming out of the ship, I mean.
Yeah.
All right, moving along to the fourth kind. Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. You want to take that one, buddy?
Yeah, I guess. This is a UFO event in which a human is abducted by a UFO or its occupants. This type was not included in Hynek's original Close Encounter scale, and it wasn't added until much later. Now, there is a little caveat in that. Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind should be described as cases when witnesses experience a transformation of their sense of reality.
So hallucination?
So I'm just going to give you this classification and we can go into that. Okay. So as to also include non-abduction cases where absurdity, hallucinatory, or dreamlike events are associated with UFO encounters. If people remember the movie The Fourth Kind, which was a basically reference to this part of the scale where the aliens, they were repressing the people's memories of everything and kind of, bringing them out. But this is also going to bring us to the Travis Walton case. Now, I want to click myself open here, me Travis Walton information. Everybody remembers it as the vehicle starring DB Cooper, or DB Cooper. Yeah, robbed the bank, robbed the airplane. No, two different people. Aliens again. It was the movie starring DB Sweeney and the Liquid Terminator guy, Robert Patrick. Robert Patrick, who also went on to be on X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Patrick, fun fact of the evening, folks.
That's right.
So this abduction takes place in 1975. And basically, Walton claims that on November 5th, 1975, while working as a logger in Arizona, he, along with several co-workers, came across a UFO in the forest, which excited the crew. They, slowed down the truck. They come to a stop and they, Travis jumps out to get a closer look. He was then struck by a beam of light. At this time, his fellow logger, still in the truck, took off to get away from the scene of what was going on. They all believed that Travis was killed, and they became, basically they were in fear for their life, so they drove for a few minutes and realized they actually left their, one of their best friends, in the woods with something happening to him, if he was dead or whatnot. And they returned to the scene. But at this point, they found no signs of the UFO or of Travis Walton. So the crew headed to town. They alerted local law enforcement to what they had witnessed. And then, of course, no one believes the men. They actually become suspects in the death or disappearance of Travis Walton.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things the police had pushed for was polygraph tests, which was, kind of a big thing, back then, was to try to prove somebody guilty or innocent. They would use, i.e., the lie detector test. All but one of them passed the test. So 5 out of the 6 people that were left after the incident, 5 out of 6 of them passed the test, no issue. The one who didn't pass the test, basically, it came up inconclusive. And what people don't actually understand is a polygraph test, though it is called a lie detector test, it is not a truly capable device of detecting a lie. There's several ways to beat a lie detector test. There's also several ways that people claim to beat a lie detector test that don't really work.
Mm-hmm.
All a polygraph test measures is the stress level, your breathing, your heart rate, your reaction to stress. If you saw something like your friend getting hit with a beam of light and flying back in the air and hitting the ground and thinking he was dead, that would be very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing those memories up, even, as we read in the Cash Landrum incident, Colby, a year later, sees a Chinook helicopter and starts getting upset.
Mm-hmm.
So, the inconclusive test doesn't really prove anything.
Right.
Now, Walton was found 5 days later, claiming that he woke up on the side of a road, and he basically had thought only a few hours had passed. And in reality, he had actually been missing 5 days at that point. And basically, to give you kind of a description of the craft that the people, the Travis Walton and his friends claimed to have seen, it was the flying disc type, measuring about 25 feet in diameter, had some kind of light or electric shock based weapon, which is basically what they say, Walton was hit with and, was thrown backwards by this.
Right, right.
Now, we were talking about radiation a little bit earlier. When this is reported, the police don't believe it. The police actually, like I said, they are basically now investigating these 6 guys for murder. They're trying to, pin a capital murder charge on these 6 guys. And this is getting reported to state police. They're starting to, try to contact other law enforcement agencies to get more help with investigating this. And around this time, basically, scientists show up on the scene with Geiger counters to search for radiation. So they search the site for radiation. They find negative readings. They, come up to the crew members who had been in the truck that night. They check them. No real sign, no positive reaction to radiation. But they check the helmets that the loggers wore, and for some reason their helmets tested positive. Now, one of the things with it was these scientists, they never identified themselves who they worked for, or nobody can remember them identifying themselves as, working for EPA or something like that. And as soon as they show up, they run their Geiger counters over some stuff. They find it on the radiation on the helmets, and they just leave. And nobody remembers, any identification, who they worked for, or whatnot. And basically, they're never heard from again. Just people recall seeing them. The people recall them testing stuff, and they're gone. They don't, nobody knows whatever became of the test and the results and the information. So now let's get into what, we've talked about the Earth, the people left on Earth and involved in this case, but we have to talk about, Travis Walton, his description of the 5 days he's missing. Now, remember, he thinks he's only gone a few minutes, but he's, basically turns up 5 days later, according to, the time he went missing to the day he, was found. So basically, Travis recalls waking up on a table and sees a light above him, hears sounds of somebody moving around the room. And he's in a lot of, he's basically a lot of pain, head and chest. He's having, some issues breathing, which he later associates with a lack of oxygen in the room. Because at this point, Walton believes that he may be in a hospital because of the setup of the room. And he basically figured, he got hit by this, blinding light, thrown back, and his friends grabbed him and rushed him, for treatment to one of the hospitals. Mm-hmm. But he notices a device basically across his chest, kind of holding him down. And one of the things he said in the beginning was his eyes wouldn't focus. Like he noticed that there were, at this point, what he thought were people, because he had heard movement and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden he's kind of becoming more aware of what's around him, and he basically thinks he's seeing people, but he can't make out the features of their face. Mm-hmm. As his eyes adjust, he noticed that it wasn't people in the room, but as he describes them, creatures. And he basically gives the common description of what people refer to as the Greys.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of creature. Like in the movie, they dramatize the aliens to make them look malevolent and stuff like that. He basically says he never really felt any kind of threat from them.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, he basically, once he realized like they weren't humans, he became panicked.
Right.
And he basically, falls off the table, gets up, starts trying to fight off the Greys. He basically grabs the closest thing he can, which he assumed was a medical instrument. And as he does this, the Greys, instead of trying to combat him, they basically just get up and walk out of the room. All of them that are in the room just get up and walk towards the doorway. The doorway opens. They headed off to what he thought, his assumption was to the right out of the door. Mm-hmm. So he heads to the door and goes to the left. And he finds a room with a chair, in just kind of a room with a chair right in the middle of it. And he's really hoping not to see somebody sitting in this chair at this point. You've already seen a whole bunch of aliens and you don't know what they were doing to you. Mm-hmm. So he gets up and he kind of like lurks his way around the room so he can see the chair. And he realizes there's nobody sitting in it. So he basically goes up to the chair and realizes it's basically kind of like a keyboard with buttons around it and stuff like that, and kind of almost like a control panel for what people, like when you think of like spaceships and stuff like that, it's kind of basically the control panel. Mm-hmm. But he also kind of bumps it and it triggers a star map, basically showing the planets and all the stars and the if you've ever seen the movie Prometheus, when they figure out the tones to basically generate the star map that the engineers were using to navigate. Now, as he's in the room, he sees a doorway open. And when he looks, he's basically seeing what he thinks is a human. Basically, it's a human-like figure. Basically, again, here's this blue coveralls part that kind of comes up in a couple other, stories. He sees a person in blue coveralls and a space helmet. So he basically just walks up to this helmeted, person, and he tries talking to him, but there's no response. But again, he's not feeling threatened. He's not, in fear for his life. And the thing just kind of acknowledges him and motions for him to follow. Mm-hmm. And it leads him through an airlock and into an area which kind of looks like a big airplane hangar that housed more of the small crafts that he claims that he had seen in the woods. Now, one of the things he notices when he first goes through the airlock and into this area is he's returned to his normal breathing. The oxygen level seems to be higher in this area. Mm-hmm. And the second thing he notices is a room of people in the blue coverall jumpsuits, but without helmets on. And basically what he describes seeing is what they consider the Nordic, the blue Nordic aliens, where they're very human-like and they have the, like blue eyes and the blondish hair. They're basically kind of, the Nordic, Hitler's master race kind of description. Yeah. And at this point, they lead him to a table.
Which actually, not to cut you off, but his actual story is quite different from the movie Fire in the Sky, which was based off of this true story.
Yeah. And he'll
again, it's Hollywood. They got to make it bigger and scarier.
You know, yeah, bigger, faster, stronger, scarier. And he's the first one to admit they bought the rights to his book, and then they loosely used his story to create a movie.
Right.
The whole alien test stuff done on him. I haven't seen the movie in years, but I kind of remember bits and pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
So while he's with these Nordics, they basically lead him to a table, and they give him what he kind of thought was an oxygen mask. And the next time he becomes conscious, he's laying face down on the side of a road. And as he looks above him, he notices a craft hovering above him, and then it shoots off into the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And he begins to walk until he notices, there's a town up ahead, and he heads into the town. He actually recognizes the town he's in. He goes to the nearest payphone, calls his, yes, he goes to a payphone. Remember, this is 1975. And calls up his, family. And when they answer the phone, they actually thought it was a prank. They thought it was just somebody calling that kind of sounded like him. And then they kind of talked to him, and they realized it was actually him. So his brother-in-law went to pick him up. And basically, still at this point, Travis is under the impression that he was gone for a few minutes. Like this whole time frame has only been a few minutes, maybe a couple hours. His brother-in-law basically has to tell him, no, you've been missing for 5 days now. It definitely is a lot different than the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of, like you were saying, some of the stuff that went on there. And, to give you kind of an idea of what Walton's description of the creatures that basically break down to probably the Greys
Mm-hmm.
is, he describes them as 4 foot tall, hairless, large eyes. His description, though, includes pupils and eyelids that blink.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a lot of times it's a lower percentage of Gray descriptions that include eyelids and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting there. And of course, now you get to the second group that he kind of, as we basically said, are the Nordics, humanoid, blue-eyed, but not human blue eyes. They're very blue.
Yeah.
And I almost assume it's kind of like the movie Dune, where the eyes are just completely blue, and it's not the pupil and stuff like that. And the blue, it's the complete eye is blue.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he claims that they were stronger than the average human. Now, I don't know if anybody's familiar with a very good TBS sitcom, People of Earth.
I don't think I've ever heard of that. Oh, wait. Is that the... it's like a comedy where there's like only a few people left on Earth?
No.
And no? Okay, then I'm thinking something else.
No. This is a show about a support group for alien abduction.
Hmm.
And the funniest thing is, it's a comedy. And the funny thing is, there is a Nordic, there's a Gray, there's a reptilian, there's a robot, and there's a reptilian that operates on Earth with human skin on as a suit.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the aliens cohabitate on this space shuttle orbiting Earth, and they've abducted these different people, and they've been abducting them since they were like kids. And this support group is kind of them talking about their experiences and getting help with the whole situation. Mm-hmm. And the aliens in this group always use a deer, a stag, as the repressed memory object. Like, in the fourth kind, they talk about like everybody sees that owl. It's always the owl. Well, they use a big male deer as their object. So people see this deer, they have this conversations with deer, and they later, start to put together that it is the repressed memory is kept by the deer, and the deer is actually the aliens. It is hilarious. It's one of those shows that you start watching it, and it's over so quick. It's like a half hour, and you start watching it, you're just like, the aliens are funny. The one alien will remind you of a Mike Myers type character.
Uh-huh.
I actually had to look it up and make sure it wasn't Mike Myers. It's not. But it's actually really funny. You probably should check it out.
Yeah,
I would
definitely,
recommend it.
definitely. Yeah. I love shows like that. Did you ever see that new show? Well, I guess it was new this past year. Ghosted or something like that with Craig Robinson and can't think of the other guy's name. But
I can't think of
how they're like on a. It's almost like an X-Files but comedy.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of it. I haven't really sat down and watched the whole episode yet. It looked good. It looked funny. So I guess you'll have to watch People of Earth, and I'll watch Ghosted, and we'll compare notes.
Yeah. So let's just kind of skip through, or just kind of burn through the fifth kind, and we'll get into the sixth kind and kind of wrap up, because we're getting past our we're going over our time. I guess we could spend a little bit of time. I don't want to go too late though. But one thing that while you were talking about the Travis Walton story, I wasn't trying to deliberately ignore you, but I found out because I wanted to go into Facebook and see if anything was updating. And apparently I was temporarily locked out of my account because it said Facebook had found that there was unusual activity going on my Facebook page. And it gave me a list of all the things that were happening. And I guess it was me sharing the show tonight on all the different groups. And I guess BeLive trying to access my Facebook account, and Facebook took it as somebody trying to break into my account, and they actually shut my account down and locked me out. I had to put a new password and everything in, so that's probably why I was getting kicked out.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's probably what had happened. So hopefully everything is fixed now and it doesn't happen again. But that's just I think what happened tonight. So I apologize in advance. But moving along in the show topic, the next is, Chad just talked about the Travis Walton story, which was the close encounter of the fourth kind, which a human is abducted. The close encounters of the fifth kind is a UFO event that involves direct communication between aliens and humans. This type of close encounter was named by Stephen M. Greer's CSETI group and is described as bilateral contact experiences through conscious, voluntary, and proactive human-initiated cooperative communication with extraterrestrial intelligence. So, did you all get that? Chad could break it down for a little bit. You actually met Dr. Greer, didn't you? Yeah. Yes. While you were waiting for your wife at the doctor's office the one time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you met him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, what Dr. Greer is working on, and what his group is working on, and they claim to have been successful. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to judge. I mean, I saw their documentary series, which, not being there to see it happen and to, be able to say 100% this was the real film and there was nothing done to it. It was pretty compelling, though, that they are doing something to initiate contact. And basically what I think the group goes by is CSETI, which is SETI is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. His group, they add a C, and I'm drawing a blank what the C was for. Communication, I think, with drawing a blank for that, but not worried about it right this minute. So basically, what Dr. Greer's thing is he had an out of body experience when he was younger, due to being very sick, and when he had this out of body experience, it changed his life and his thought process. And he basically became very big in, the thought of a collective consciousness and the thought of being able to get into that through transcendental meditation and, other meditation forms. And basically what their thought is if there is this collective consciousness, everything would be connected to it, including the possible alien life forms. So therefore, if they can tap into that and put out a signal welcoming these groups to Earth, that the groups will get that message and come. And basically what his group is really trying to do is human-initiated contact with extraterrestrial life. And not governmental, because they basically feel the government has made contact with several alien life forms and groups. And of course, this is where the government, are they hiding the fact that they know about this kind of stuff, and are they using it in such a way that could be detrimental to the rest of us? And their thing is to create contact from groups of just regular everyday people with the extraterrestrials and create a rapport and an open line of communication with all of us. Eliminating the governmental being able to control the conversation. He's looking to create a chance for us all to be on equal footing with the possible alien existence. His documentary Cirrus is really interesting. I think his new documentary is The Disclosure Project, I think, which is available, I believe, online. You can purchase it to watch. I think it's available on Amazon and stuff like that. I haven't seen it yet. It would be definitely very interesting to get a look at it and see what it is. And I'm hoping to one day actually be able to get Dr. Greer on and kind of talk to him, because I'm sure he could shed a great many more detail than I did on his projects and his research.
Oh yeah. I think just breaking down his project alone would be enough to fill a show.
Yeah, and he actually lives not about less than an hour from me.
We could almost do like a 2-part series with him with all the information that he has.
Oh yeah, I would think so. I mean, just the amount of history he has in this kind of research, and he has spoken on national news, to Congress, different things and stuff like that over the years. So he would definitely be just to talk UFO history and stuff like that. He'd definitely be interested. And it is the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence is his organization, CSETI.
Yeah, I felt bad because I had the acronym, but I couldn't say what it actually stood for. But moving on to our last. Oh no, we still got another one. So, Close Encounters of the Sixth Kind is death of a human or animal associated with a UFO sighting, although some might consider this as a more severe example of a second kind encounter. And I guess most notoriously for the Close Encounters of the Sixth Kind, I don't know of any stories of people dying from a UFO sighting or death related to an extraterrestrial encounter. But one thing that is very, very kind of widespread for this particular encounter, for the sixth kind, is cattle mutilation. And that is something that's very, very common, especially throughout the southwest of the United States. There's a cluster of states in that area where cattle mutilation happens, and it's almost like it happens simultaneously, the same time, same night, same basically scenario and situation. And the interesting part about that is a lot of the ranchers that are reporting the mutilations actually go on to say that the incision areas on the carcasses look to be almost like they were done with such precision that it's almost like they say it was done surgically, but not with your standard surgical utensils like a scalpel or anything like that, or any kind of a bladed device. These look like they were done almost with a sophisticated laser, because the openings are cauterized. Evil lasers.
Was it an evil laser?
They were cows with laser beams attached to their freaking heads. Yeah, but the wounds or the incisions or openings, if you will, they almost look like the blood cells and everything were cauterized, because most of them didn't even have any bleed out. Like, there was no blood that was coming from the carcass, which I thought was very interesting. And a lot of the areas were more like the anus area of the animals, areas where there's more vital organs. I think some of them had their tongues removed, eyeballs removed, intestinal tracts removed. And Chad brought up a good point on one of our previous shows when we were talking about extraterrestrials possibly being people from the future traveling back to almost culture from, I guess, more stable creatures. Because if you figure people in the future, we're living basically in spaceships in outer space, your bodies don't have the gravitational pull, they don't have the resiliencies that you would have living on Earth. And I would assume that you're probably not exposed to as much up there as you are down on Earth. So in order to basically reboot or recharge your immune system, they would have to take these cultures with them. And ironically, and like I said before, there aren't very many cases of humans being mutilated or disformed or killed, if you will. Now, there are reports of people being abducted and they're probed, they're prodded, they're, implanted with what they think are tracking devices. And when we get in the seventh encounter, I'll talk about a little bit more where people are, I guess they're abducted to for eggs, sperm, other, I guess, means of reproducing and probably rebuilding a future genome, if you will, of a stronger race. But what I find funny is most of the people that get abducted obviously come back to tell the story. No, granted, there's people going missing all the time. Like, what is it? David Paulides has that missing 411 where there's all kinds of cases of people going missing inexplicably. And, I mean, could it be abductions and the people don't come back? Who knows? They're not there to tell the story. But you want to say something?
Yeah, because a lot of his stories have I've listened to him speak before, and a lot of his stories come back to like strange fog and rainstorms happening after the disappearances, which ends up creating a lack of physical evidence to follow.
Yep. Yeah. Which, if you think about it, supposedly, what is that new movie with Gerard Butler? Is it Geostorm or something like that? Where supposedly the government has a device that can manipulate weather. Well, maybe that technology is the final product where it actually, is capable in the future race. And they're able to do that where they know, all right, well, if we're taking somebody, we got to cover our tracks. Like a cow, kind of like the butterfly effect, where if you do something, it has a chain reaction. And they say if you go back in time, like you wouldn't be able to go back in time and manipulate like any kind of a large world event, like a war or something like that, because that would change the course of history and therefore would change what happens in the future. So if you watch a lot of those sci-fi movies where people travel through time, one of the big things is you can't alter the footprint of history because it's already been set and you don't know the consequences of what would happen in the future. So if you harvest from livestock, the consequences, I would imagine, wouldn't be nearly as dire as if you would take especially a famous person from history and change the course of our existence. So it would make sense for cattle mutilation to occur more so than humans. But like Chad was saying, with the Pilates cases, the missing 411s, there are these oddities that happen after the person goes missing. So you take some average Joe who, not to sound insensitive, probably wouldn't make much of a difference if he was here or not. You abduct them, you wipe your tracks clean, and you do what you need to do with that person. Maybe someday they'll come back, maybe not. Maybe they're part of a bigger plan. Who knows? But that's really the sixth kind is death or mutilation.
Well, you kind of add to your point. There's two different things there. There was the idea of that television show, the 4400, which were 4,400 people that were abducted by basically aliens who one day just all show up in a field together.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's also, when you're talking about like I think the movie or the story is The Sound of Thunder. I think it's by Edmund Rice Burroughs,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically what the butterfly effect is kind of written off of.
Uh-huh.
What they would do was they were using time travel as a recreational thing, and they were going back to hunt dinosaurs. But what they did was they found a dinosaur that was just about to die anyway, like within an hour of when they would come into that point in time, within an hour that dinosaur dies of
natural causes.
A volcano exploding.
Okay.
And it ends up killing the dinosaur in this area. So they went back and they would just constantly hunt that dinosaur. But they actually had to make sure they took the bullet out of the dinosaur each time. So they'd have to run over and cut the dinosaur open, pull the bullet out, and then go back through the hole in time.
Mm-hmm.
Except for one guy accidentally steps on a butterfly, steps off the trail, because they had this see-through elevated trail that they had basically, I guess, was a time trail, and you could walk on it, but if you stepped off of it, you could interfere with the evolution of things and stuff like that. And basically, what if some of these people that do go missing, if you have this, especially with the missing 411 type cases with this, rain and or fog anomalies, is what if these people were about to die anyway?
It's a thought.
If it is a future group of humans coming back to harvest bacteria and stuff and genetics from us, they would know, Joe Smith goes out in the woods, falls and breaks his leg and dies.
Right.
So they wait till Joe Smith goes out in the woods, starts down the trail, abduct him.
Boom. That's actually a really great hypothesis, because it makes absolute perfect sense. Because in all those missing 411 cases, they're usually people that go into the national forests or state parks, and they're going hiking, they're going backpacking, and for whatever reason, they decide to go alone, and all of a sudden they basically vanish from thin air. So that's actually makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Now the fog and stuff like that always makes me think of like the alleged Project Rainbow, which was the Philadelphia experiment, and their claims of fog and stuff like that. Which, if you get anywhere into the Philadelphia experiment, you start to hear the story about aliens eventually and stuff like that. So, it just. But I do believe, like, if you're going to harvest genetics and bacteria and stuff like that from the human body for cultures, you already know about when these people die, and the fact that they're not important. It's not like, the president goes out walking and gets abducted and is never, goes missing. It's some guy that, his family missed him. They loved him. They don't know where he is or what happened to him.
Right. But his course in time or whatever.
Yeah, he could have been. Yeah, he might have been going out in the woods to commit suicide.
Yeah.
So instead of his family finding his body hanging from a tree, he just disappeared forever.
Right.
It would almost be the human compassion of our future selves. Like, look, they find him 2 days later hanging from a tree. His mother, is the one that finds him. Let's save her that heartache and just abduct him. Take him, use him to the cultures. He physically was fine except for, or the fact that somebody, fell down a hill, broke their leg, and would be stuck somewhere and would end up dying. Physically they're okay. Yeah. Physically, before they fall, they're perfectly healthy. It's when they fall, they become, and if you're harvesting bacteria and genetics, a broken leg isn't genetic.
Right.
So, that's the sixth kind. I think we could probably move on from there.
Yeah. So we'll move on to Close Encounters of the Seventh Kind, and this is our last close encounter on the Hynix Scale. And basically, it's the creation of a human-alien hybrid by sexual reproduction or by artificial scientific methods. And some of the, I guess, classifications of different human hybrids are the Nordic Aryan aliens, where there's sometimes called space brothers. I'm going to butcher this. Plagiarin, previously known as Pleiadians, Venusians, tall whites, or Agarthans. Basically, they're humanoids with stereotypical Nordic features, like Chad had talked a little bit about them earlier. They're tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, and have featured in several cases of contact. And it's said that they're from ancient Earth, but presented themselves as extraterrestrials in the past. They moved from living in the surfaces to living underground around the Himalayan areas after a natural event had occurred. And there's also stories about, these kind of races that have a subterranean base in Antarctica, kind of all over the place. But another thing that I had found, which I thought was kind of interesting, I found it on Facebook, and it's a page is called The Human Hybrid Children, and in parentheses, human/extraterrestrial ET. And it's on Facebook, and they have like over 14,000 followers, which I wish we had that many. But here's kind of what they have to say about the page. And I basically took this off of their About Us portion of the page, and they said that the page is dedicated to the hybrid children that are a genetic blend of human and extraterrestrial, in parentheses, zeta reticuli or grays DNA. At the moment, the children reside in a different dimension, and why not? Sure, we're going to keep them in a safe place. But they will begin arriving on Earth in the relatively near future. Oh, it's a snowplow. I was like, what the hell is that? I just felt my studio shaking. Yeah, we have some big old fat snow going on out there. But anyways, they're excited about coming, the hybrid children, and we, the parents or the people on that page, can't wait for their arrival. Everyone involved in the hybridization program, whether he or she remembers they're here in physical reality, made a soul agreement before coming into this lifetime to take part in the agenda to awaken humankind to our infinite expressions and reunite us with our galactic family. And it also goes on to say, during the hybridization program, 5 hybrid races were created, including the, I'm going to kill this, Shalinea / I don't know what the hell, YA''YL, and yeah, civilizations. I don't know.
These are made up words.
It certainly sounds that way. The Shalinea, those who will come first, will be the first to make open contact with Earth. Their ship, known as the Hynix Lights, was across the state of Arizona in March of 1997. It was seen, the Hynix Lights. Many parents communicate in dream time with their children. Some shift dimensions when they're asleep to aid and assist the children with lessons they will need in order to acclimate to our society, basically Humans 101. That's a lot to take in. I'm not going to discredit these people. I mean, if that's what they think, they're entitled to it. I don't, I'm not going to hold anything against them. But if that were true, that'd be pretty interesting, to say the least. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to each their own. People do believe certain things to be true, and evidently with 14,000 Facebook followers, there's other people, or at least people that are interested in what they're saying. I think I may go out and join the group, tonight or tomorrow, and just monitor the situation. But
I think the girl who kind of fronts that, she has a lot of videos on Facebook. I don't know. I guess she's convincing. I don't know. But I sent you a link before about another woman who kind of fits the mold of that Nordic Aryan alien description, where she was a twin. And I believe that was on, oh God, what was that site? Was it the press.uk or something like that?
Something like that,
yeah. But anyways, there's a video on there where this guy interviews this woman. She can't speak very good English, but basically it breaks down to she was a twin, but she was implanted, and she has the alien DNA within her. The twin doesn't, and she was put in there for a reason, so on and so forth. You could look it up on Google. It was kind of odd, but there are a lot of people out there claiming to be some sort of a hybrid of a extraterrestrial race, and how true it is, I don't know. I don't want to knock anybody, because quite frankly, I don't want to be visited. I don't want to be probed or prodded, nor do I want my family to be exposed to that. So If that's what you do, that's what you do. That's good. Just leave us alone. But other than that, I mean, that pretty much wraps up our show. That is the close encounters of the 7 different kinds. That was, again, based off of Dr. Alan Hynek's scale of UFO classifications. So you guys could look into that a little bit more, find out more information if you like. It's your discretion. And again, I do apologize for the hiccups that we had in the show tonight. They were unfortunate, but apparently Facebook was trying to lock me out of my account, and that's why I was getting kicked out. So hopefully the show fully recorded. Hopefully everybody could see, and watch the show and hear what we had to say. I did see somebody posted that when I shared the show in their site, she said nothing was attached, but yet I was looking at it. So I'll have to go back and rewatch the show to make sure that everything kind of came through. So if you guys could all hear us, if you could actually see the show, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your continued support. And hopefully next week we'll get this right and not have any more interruptions. We'll let you guys know what next week's show is going to be about. We'll post that later on throughout the week. And otherwise, as always, thank you. You could get in touch with us at our website, www.explorersgroup.com. On Twitter, @explorersgroup is the handle. And as you see us here, facebook.com/explorersgroup. And we also do have a YouTube page where we archive our shows. You can get to that by clicking the live shows on our website. Go to www.explorersgroup.com. Click on live shows, and that will bring up our shows are tagged to our YouTube page. So it'll take you directly over there. And while you're there, please subscribe, hit the notifications so you could continue to follow us and get caught up on any episodes that you missed. And we also put evidence that we collect during any investigations that we partake in. So this is Les signing out. Chad, as always, thank you so much for being my best friend and my co-host, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, yep. Thank you too, buddy. Like Les said, we'll talk to you again next week. We'll let you know what the show topic's going to be. Hope you enjoyed this. It was quite interesting, and see you guys next week.
See you, everybody. Good night.